What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning Of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite filmmakers and the deeper meaning within their films. And this episode, we're talking about two of my favorite, or one of my favorites. It's my favorite comedy duo. It's Phil Lord and Chris Miller. These are my favorite comedy duos.
Wow, over the Farley brothers?
Dude, honestly, I'm gonna talk about their films, but like, you still can name like one. I'm struggling to find one movie from the Phil Lord and Miller that I'm like, that's a bad movie, or that's like a disappointing movie. Like, I've rewatched all these movies, and I was texting you about it, and I'm just like, bro, I can't handle how like every single one of their movies is not just good, but it's great in my opinion, obviously, but. I'm just saying it. I think these are my favorite comedy duo directors.
This is our first duo we've done.
Yeah,
as well.
It is our first duo. The reason we're doing this, guys, is because it's Han Solo month. It's Star Wars month. I don't know. Because Han Solo is coming up soon.
Yeah, and we're trying to get those views.
Yeah,
that's essentially what's going on.
Exactly. Because let's face it, guys. We're a little bit on the bottom end of that, but we're gonna make up for it with this episode, hopefully, because this episode's gonna kill, man.
Oh, yeah.
All them Lord and Miller fans out there.
Yeah, come on, Lord and Miller.
But
give us a retweet.
Honestly, these guys were attached to do Han Solo. I have a lot of thoughts about that. Unfortunately, I'm not on Movie Talk. I'm not doing the schmo, so I can't get my thoughts out. After when that actually went down, when the firing of Lord and Miller went down from Lucasfilm off Han Solo, but now, even though it's been like forever since they've been fired, I can finally express my thoughts, and I'm going to express it. But before we do that, guys, we're going to read your comments from last week's episode, which was all about Donald Glover, all about Atlanta, and we got 7 comments.
Yeah.
Let's read all 7. No,
nice
we're not even going to read all 7, but let's start with Dave Dranow. It says, thank you for the timely podcast. I love Atlanta. Thanks, Collider TV Talk, Josh, David, Sinead, Emma, Sasha, for turning me on to this. Interesting. I had just watched the SNL and the music video. Thanks for breaking that down, RB3. Yeah, interesting that I didn't know Collider TV Talk even mentioned Atlanta. Because I saw a few episodes of Collider TV Talk, but that's cool that they mentioned
Makuga's
Atlanta.
a big fan. He always,
that's dope.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently he watches every episode and stuff. R.I.P. Collider TV Talk, man.
R.I.P., man.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
I haven't seen David Griffin in a long time.
David Griffin, man. You know what? Yeah. I want to see him at are you going to Friday's thing?
What's
I don't
Friday?
know.
It's happening Friday.
Tell
me off
I'll tell you afterwards. I don't want to. We're going to the club, y'all. Let's just say that. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, I want to see David Griffin again. That's literally your thought was my thought.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to hang out with David Griffin. That's my goal, man. Every time we have like something like Comic-Con or something.
Yeah.
We're like, come on, we hang out with like Copster and all these guys all the time. But David Griffin, you got to hang out with classy people sometimes.
I'm telling you, man. You remember when we were doing the first year? First year I was doing it. The second year you did Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And we're doing the TV coverage, and you were like with Michael Medina or whatever.
And David Griffin.
Yeah.
You were like carrying that camera bag that we have right over there.
Literally,
that's
the
like
camera that we're recording on now.
50 pounds of a camera bag. Those guys were clutch. Shout out to David Griffin and Michael Medina, man.
Yeah.
Clutch. And you too, obviously. But
yeah, shout out to you, bro. That was a lot of good coverage.
Yeah, dude, that was like...
You did like 40 videos.
I didn't even know what I was doing. I thought I was like going to do what you were doing and just shoot him. But then I was like, I guess I'm hosting it? Cool, I'm hosting it. Yeah. But that was fun, man.
It was a fun time.
Fun time. Shout out to San Diego Comic-Con. Hopefully we'll go back eventually. Neil Varmer says, because the internet, ! Hey, man, because the internet. D. Joseph says, this and Top 10 is my all-time favorite podcast.
Whoa.
I'm in Africa studying safari guiding and only have enough Wi-Fi to download podcasts. Dude, that's my favorite comment.
That's amazing.
That's an amazing comment.
Hey, Top 10 is like probably one of my favorite podcasts. So like us being in the ranks of that's amazing. Hopefully the rest of the fans will catch on one of these days. Hey, man, shout out to you. Commented from the homeland, Africa.
Hey.
Safari as well. Appreciate that.
Hey, shout out to... Never mind. I was going to say something so dumb. Never mind. Brian Souter says, Lord and Miller followed by Ron Howard is a great idea. Well, we're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
He also says the cape wasn't that bad. I mean...
It was the best we had back then, though. It was the best we had
I
back
mean,
then.
it had 2 good episodes. Guy Cole was upset at us. I think it was because of mainly you, because you said the DC fans. Dude, I want to say this right now. I'm a DC fan. Like, I want to make that clear. This is what a DC fan looks like. Not those Twitter trolls you find.
The faceless morons.
The people who are like, just any negative thing you say about a DC movie. If you're a true DC fan, you want the DC movies to be great. That's what a true DC fan does. I told you last week, like, DC is my shit. Like, that's always going to be my thing. And I love Zack Snyder. I've talked about Zack Snyder repeatedly and about how I didn't like Justice League because they undercut Zack Snyder. It's like, that's the most DC fanboy thing anyone can say, and yet people still come at me.
Yeah, bro, they call
me a hater, and
on
I'm
your
like,
fucking Mother's Day.
On my Mother's Day.
Enough of this, people. If you fucking claim to be a DCEU fan, and you get mad over a couple of people were talking bad about your favorite movies, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Suck my right nut for all I care. Excuse the language for all the children listening at home, but I'm sick and tired of these DC fans crawling through our Twitters. Mainly me. I mean, AC, you've been getting a little bit of it, particularly this weekend.
I love DC. I didn't even do. Yeah. I mean, at least you.
I shit on it. Actively.
You shit on it. I didn't even shit on it.
But yeah, no. For the real DC fans out there, like Ace, and like I'm sure many of the reasonable people who like DC movies, DC comic books.
There's some good DC movies. There's some bad DC movies.
I probably read more DC comic books than like anything else.
Me too.
I say The Dark Knight's probably like better than anything Marvel's done.
Like the most comic books I've ever read are just Batman comics. I've read dozens and dozens of Batman comics. I don't know. I love DC.
Teen Titans is like my favorite show.
Come on,
growing
man.
up.
All I'm saying, guys, is let's be civil. Let's be polite.
Yes.
Let's enjoy movies together. Let's be peaceful. And let's be human beings. How about that?
Or get cooked on Twitter by your boy. 'Cause I will do that.
Or get roasted on Twitter by RB3. With that, let's talk about Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And the crazy thing about this is, speaking of being civil, and speaking of
DC, by the way.
DC, that's right. But I am going to talk specifically. I wanted to do this. I told RB3 beforehand. I'll make it short because people have literally beaten this dead horse. Well, not literally, but they've beaten this dead horse of talking about the firing of Lord and Miller off the Lucasfilm. Ooh. But I sometimes watch Collider. But dude, that Collider episode kind of tripped me out, and I was literally like, all of them were like, well, I guess Kathleen was right. What do you think? Lucasfilm never is wrong. How about you, Mark? Never wrong, Lucasfilm. How about you, John? Never wrong, Lucasfilm. And I was like, like I was jumping out of my chair. I was like, no. And the only one, and I'm going to give her a shout out right now, Clark Wolf. Shout out to Clark Wolf. She was the only one who was like, you fired directors 3 weeks before the production was done. You interviewed these guys. You've seen their movies. You know they're comedy directors. You know this is their structure and this is how they shoot movies. And you still don't want to take the fault? I'm sorry, man, but I'm Team Lord and Miller. I'm sorry. I am. First of all, because of their track record, because everything they've done and everything they've created is, say what you will about how silly and ridiculous it is, it's gold. It's funny, it makes money, and it's dope. People enjoy it. General movie-going audiences enjoy it. Movie fans enjoy it. Cinephiles enjoy it. It's actually good comedy directing. And my thing is, no one cares specifically enough. Who gives a crap about a Han Solo movie? Even Star Wars fans were saying, which I am, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, were saying Han Solo movie. As soon as they said Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You're making a one-off movie and you're taking advantage of tone. With the trilogy movie, you can't play around with tone because it's a Star Wars trilogy movie. You have to keep it within the originals, the prequels, and the new trilogy. But if it's a spin-off movie and if it's a Han Solo movie, it's going to be a throwaway movie. Why not make a silly comedy? Why not make some improv fun stuff? Why not make it like that? So I was on board because of Lord and Miller. As soon as they fired Lord and Miller and the reasoning they gave, I was very much off board. I'm still gonna watch the movie. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm a fan of Phoebe Larkin. I forget her name, Phoebe Larkin, and I obviously love Donald Glover, so I'm going because of them. And I'm also a massive Star Wars fan, so I want to see this movie. But the more I read up on Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the more I saw their BAFTA discussion, and I see how they do their writing process and the way they interpret scripts. For me, I feel like what we're going to get, and we haven't seen the movie, we can talk about reactions, because reactions weren't necessarily all that positive either. But once we see the movie, I'm still kind of convinced, and obviously we're going to discuss it once we do it, that what we could have gotten still would have been better. I'm convinced. Whether it's what Lawrence Kasdan wanted or not is another thing, but I think it would have been a better movie. Thor Ragnarok is a perfect example. Improv works. Comedy works, guys. Let people be funny. It doesn't have to be what's on script all the time. It's okay to go off script. We've had great movies that prove this. And that's the end of my rant. Otherwise, it's going to be 45 minutes, and I don't want to do that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Well, first of all, let me say something.
Uh-oh.
I'm a big fan of these directors. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I just want to put this disclaimer out there before I start. Lucasfilm, still looking for that internship. I'm still looking for the bag.
I was going to say, man.
Ignore this gold chain around my neck. I'm broke. This is fake. I could bite right into it. Give me an internship, y'all. Need some money. Anyway, yeah. Han Solo and Phil Lord and Chris. Here's my thing, man. Of course, like the whole situation, you really could have cleared this up with a little like pre-production, I guess, plan. But I guess, you know, when you're shooting, things go differently according to plans and when you originally started. Egos come into power and all that stuff. It's all understandable. I think it's really interesting when you read up on a lot of these reports.
And I just to clear this, I've read up on all of them.
Yeah.
And some of them kind of got me upset because some of them throw Lord and Miller under the bus for the dumbest reasons.
Well, see, here's my thing, too. I think that when those initial reports were coming out, all of them were super negative towards Lord and Miller. Mm-hmm. Hollywood Reporter had this whole piece of why they were fired, all that stuff. To me, what that says to me personally is that the Disney PR people were like, peddling this kind of information, you know, whereas like we never really heard officially from Phil Lord and Chris Miller's side. And of course, they're only going to speak positively about the experience because they have executive producer credit. They don't want to fuck up their bag or their money.
And they want more jobs in Hollywood.
They want more jobs, yeah. And C is probably also too the NDA situation, right? NDA
Sure.
is all up and down the board. But so when all this negative press was coming out, the first thing I thought was, okay, this is clearly Disney peddling their power and putting a little influence out. And the more and more we start reading about these reports and hearing these things, I mean, you know, I don't know. To me, it's like you could clearly almost see like a pattern to like a lot of what happens with these directors on these projects. With Rogue One, Kathleen Kennedy obviously had a vision. The director had a vision. The visions just didn't collide, and then like they had to bring in somebody else to finish it. Same thing with Solo. Same thing with Episode 9. Of course, they got rid of Colin Trevorrow and they brought back J.J. Abrams. And you know, there's really only like one pattern that's like consecutive in all this. And I'm not gonna throw like Kathleen Kennedy under the bus because she's obviously a genius. She's been in this business for a long time. She started off as a PA for Steven Spielberg on Raiders of the Lost Ark, if I'm not mistaken. So I have nothing but respect for her. I don't know if the team that's around the Lucasfilm brand right now fully understands like the way to engage this material, because all it was before was just George Lucas. Before this, it was just George Lucas. Now there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of investments. There's a lot of bigger plays and issues and markets that they're trying to appeal to, trying to go out. So it's much more of a corporate thing, I feel like, than it was say like the original inception of Star Wars. And even the prequels are kind of just like George Lucas paying for it all himself and just doing it, you know. So it's definitely, it has more of a feel, and they're trying to go for something safer. But then even when they do go for something a little more different, like with The Last Jedi, people are going to be divided too. And I was divided on it, but I wasn't divided on it because it's different. I was divided on it because of the filmmaking, you know, and I think that's the most important thing. I think the filmmaking from start to finish has to be locked in and key, and whatever story you want to tell from that point is going to work out. So,
Yeah, it's much more of a product than anything else, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's why when people were saying on episode 7, when episode 7 was coming out, and I was one of the people saying it, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if Rey turned evil?
Yeah.
And I literally said, Rey's a Disney princess. Rey is officially a Disney princess. You can literally take a picture with Rey at Disneyland right now. That's not a joke. So no, she's not going to turn evil for many reasons, because you're losing your commodity, you're losing your product. But that's kind of my issue, is like, I don't like every decision that's happening with the new trilogy. I've made that very clear, but I like the central decisions that's happening with the new trilogy, but they're still playing it sort of safe. My counter to that would be, why not take advantage of one-off movies? The whole point of doing these anthology movies, these Star Wars story, whatever it's going to be, the whole point of it was to dive into different tones and themes and styles and types and genres of movies.
Well, I mean, I think they were going for that approach initially when they got the Rogue One to be a war film kind of deal. And I thought Solo was going to be the comedy. And then they originally, remember, they announced Boba Fett before, and then that was going to be Josh Trank.
And they nixed that.
They nixed that. But
that's another director.
Another one with problems.
Kathleen Kennedy out here with the freaking AK, bro. Just shooting up directors, bro. Just knocking them out, bro.
I got to do that meme of
just like,
Donald Glover.
With all the directors. but my thing is, like, you're right. That was supposed to be the thing. But you realize that once they're on set or once they see a cut of it, they're like, never mind. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
you gotta trust the process. You gotta trust the process. I think, and then and of course, that's not to say maybe Lord and Miller may have not had the best time on set.
That's a huge possibility. All I'm bringing to the table as a like a front to my argument is 3 weeks left in production, and their filmography, which we're gonna jump into right now, which is, in my opinion, just bowling pin strikes every time, just home runs every. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 Jump Street, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, 22 Jump Street, and Lego Movie.
Yeah.
Like, every single one. Like, name one that's like, oh, that shit was whack. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm convinced that Lord and Miller's version of the Solo movie would have been maybe wackier, maybe sillier, but significantly better than what we're going to get. And this is me jumping the gun, and I understand that, and I understand that's like a counter to my argument. But I just personally feel this way, and I really do feel like when you're a producer for a film, and I'm going to, as much as I want to say Kathleen Kennedy, I'm going to do something even more controversial and say Lawrence Kasdan. I think this is more of a Lawrence Kasdan thing. I really do, because if you read reports and if you see, I really highly recommend the Lord and Miller BAFTA masterclass that they do. It's like about an hour long. They do a Q&A, but they give a masterclass on screenwriting and how their version of screenwriting is very different than what most people do. But when they talk about, they actually mention Lawrence Kasdan, and they say, yeah, this is not what he does. But they're very much on board with making movies and throwing in stuff that's not necessarily in the script, and even allowing stuff, even during post, to change things up and make a better movie. And they said in their interview, they said that right now, with the problem they're running into with Star Wars, is that everyone at the studio doesn't want to take risks, and they very much want to play it safe. And they said this while they were working on it, and I was like, yo, this is kind of crazy. And they said that they're just content with what they have instead of spicing things up and trying to change things up a little bit when it comes to a Star Wars movie. And Lawrence Kasdan and them butted heads all throughout production. And then that's what happened. Lawrence was like the one calling up Kathleen and being like, yo, these guys are listening to me. They want to change up the script. They're doing improv stuff. And my thing is, like, I get it. Lawrence Kasdan is going to go down in history as one of the greatest screenwriters we have. I understand that. But at the same time, like you said initially, this suddenly becomes, well, yo, that's Lawrence Kasdan, though. You can't say shit. It's like, bro, yeah. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Like, you see what I'm saying? But that's the problem with Hollywood, because Hollywood is all ego. And at the end of the day,
the ego
it's never gonna be like, we're all filmmakers making a movie. It's like, no, that's Lawrence Kasdan, so what he say goes, and if you're going off him, you're fired. That's essentially what it is. Right. I don't know. I can go on all about it all day. I don't know if you have some closing words.
Again, Lucasfilm don't take anything I said here seriously.
I honestly, I always have to make disclaimers, but there's very few people who are bigger Star Wars fans than me. Let's just say that. Yeah. I've been on freaking Ken's podcast talking about how massive of a Star Wars fan I am, and if I can keep up with Ken, then I can keep up with anyone.
right. And I think
I'm a massive Star Wars fan. So
hey, and I'm excited for the rest of what they.
Me too. I told you the central stuff of what's going on. I kind of like the new trilogy. I like Kylo Ren. I like what they're doing. I do.
I like where they were headed. I think.
I still think they're.
One. I don't know where the story's gonna head.
I have a feeling where the story's going, and I like where I think it's going.
Really? Okay. Because I don't.
If J.J. Abrams switches it up like everyone is saying, then I won't like it. Let's just say that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how he plans on switching it. I mean, I don't know. To me, that was kind of the thing of Last Jedi. Like, you could have literally ended the movie. You could have literally ended the trilogy like right there, and that could have been a whole story arc for both of them. I feel like almost.
Sure.
I don't know though. I'm hoping it ends up good, and of course they got the Game of Thrones people to do something right.
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson has a trilogy.
Yeah.
John Favreau has a TV show. There's get some black people in there, some people of color, some women.
Did you see the SNL Donald Glover Black People in Space?
No,
bro, you gotta see that, bro.
Sketch, yeah,
you gotta see that.
Oh man, they should have got Donald Glover to finish this movie solo.
There you go. Yeah. Let's jump into their first. Well, they started out in TV. Phil Lord and Chris Miller started out in TV. They did I think it was MTV.
Clone High. I remember this show.
It was MTV, right?
I think it was either MTV or Cartoon Network.
So Clone High was about historical figures, clones of historical figures going to high school together, and the crazy, insane stuff that happens. Super wacky, but that's very Lord and Miller. It's very wacky. But from there, they wanted to, when they jumped into film, they wanted to do an animated movie. They were both considered animation experts because that's kind of what they did in college. They met in college, and they started out with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, based on...
It was a children's story, right?
Based on the children's book, correct.
Right.
And then apparently, when they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, this is some inside info that they give on the BAFTA Masterclass that I recommended. They were initially like just jerked around by the studio. The studio was so like fed up with what they were doing. They were changing so many stuff that eventually, I think they were like fired initially and they were hired back on. Yeah, I think that's what they said. Wow. Yeah, like it was crazy. And that at the end of the day, they were going to shut down the project, but they spent too much money already. So their plan was, and this is straight from Phil Lord and Chris Miller, their plan was to let the project finish, and then once it fails, to just bury Lord and Miller. That's what the studio wanted to do, and then that didn't happen because it turned out to be a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
You see, okay, this was the most recent one I rewatched actually for the whole rewatch of these movies. I remember watching this movie as a kid and like distinctly not liking it. I remember that.
How old were you?
I was like, was it 9 years ago? 9 years ago? I was like 12, 11, something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I remember seeing this, and I remember this was before the Avatar hype. So then this was like, oh, it's a new 3D movie, and it's gonna be food in 3D, and I think that's what they're initially going for, like in the trailers and stuff, to sell kids on this. But then like you go into it, and it's like, yeah, it's food falling out of the sky, and there's actual people talking. So like, I don't know. For me, as like a little kid, I was able to register like real quick, like the Pixar movies are the one for the stories, and then like everything else. And especially this was Sony Animations. This was one of their first big projects in general, which I'm sure is why Phil Lord and Chris Miller were nervous about that going or being jerked around by the studio. So this is one of their first bigger projects. We're watching it now, though. I love this movie, man. Yeah. This is a great, great, great animated movie. And then like I don't know, man. All the stuff with or Mr. T when he's the police officer, that kills me. The character of Sam, played by Anna Faris, like the journalist,
the weather reporter.
Yeah. Having to like hide her smarts to like trying to appeal to, and then really
mainstream audience.
And then really, I mean, honestly, bro, like going to college with like a lot of journalism majors. USC is one of the biggest like journalism schools, for broadcast journalism, whatever. And then you meet a lot of people who are super airheads, bro, super airheads. And then, but then you meet a good amount of people who are like actually really smart, but then they do put on the airhead approach. And like, when we're watching this movie now, I was like, oh, okay, they're totally hitting that. Like, they're totally hitting that, and I really appreciate that. I don't know, I just love this movie, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I think this podcast is going to be a fun one because we're mainly going to talk about central themes of the movie is obviously father and son, and the father feeling like he can't relate to his son. Mm-hmm. That's a big one too.
Right.
But he also feels like maybe it's time for him to grow up. Mm-hmm. And to maybe take a real job and instead of kind of dreaming a little too big.
Right.
Which is different from his mother, who he lost when he was younger, who believed that, dream as big as you want because you were gifted initially. So that's the central theme. But again, what makes this movie great at the end of the day, and what makes Phil Lord and Chris Miller great, is that they're just really good at making funny movies. This is a genuinely funny movie. There's a lot of little jabs they take that you can kind of... I love every time they jump to London into UK, they do like a little jab of how they're like... I love the ending, especially the ending is what they do. Where like everyone embraced it. Ice cream Paris, ice cream Egypt, and then they jump to UK. No change. It's too fun for them. They don't want no fun. But that's funny, and also the ending where they're like, suddenly all these giant storms are attacking all the major cities, starting with New York, and New York's like, what? Like, why us? Kind of like every disaster movie is always New York.
Yeah.
And then I love the during like the first act of the movie, where the pan up camera shot.
Oh yeah, when
everyone is going,
up.
even like the monkey going, kill me, dude. Like if you're a movie fan, you would actually understand that stuff.
Yeah, it's very much like touching on the tropes of traditional stuff. I love the themes, like you mentioned, the theme of like father and son. And I also think it concerns itself a lot with like people who are like outside of the social norm. And I think that's really what this movie like comes down to. I think what Phil Lord and Chris Miller's filmography coming down to. It's like people who are like outside of the traditional norms of like where they're supposed to conform to. And want to be different and want to break out, but like society is like trying to hold them down. I think that's really, really important, thing to like encourage kids to like break out of.
It's always interesting doing a kids movie, right? Because when you want to do a kids movie, you want to make it simple. Because if you're too complex, then you're going to neglect your majority of your audience. But at the same time, you want to make it interesting and funny for adults and for kids. But at the same time, you're right. You want to make a message that parents can be like, well, that's a good message. Like it's a good message for kids, and it's a good one, and it has a great ending too with the translator going on to dad, and he's like actually pouring his heart out, saying how much he loves his son and all that.
Right.
I think that's a great heartfelt ending after so much ridiculousness that went down of like flying into a giant meatball and like, freaking Manny is like flying. Manny is the little,
Manny's hilarious.
Little Guatemalan doctor and pilot. I love when he's, I'm from Guatemala. Of course I'm a doctor. And he just like starts coming out. I came here for a better life. How do you think that's going? I love it. I love it. But
and that's another thing that they do a lot too, is like subverting the expectations of like characters.
Sure. I also love the little monkey character. I think his name is Steve. Steve.
I can't remember.
But dude, that scene when he's like, when the gummy bears are attacking the ship.
The plane,
oh my god, dude! And when he sees it, he just sees la 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 la. The gummy bears are dancing for him, and he's like, "Yes, gummy bears!" And then he starts like attacking them and doing like he pulls the heart out of them.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is just really, really funny to me. And I think this movie, for like a fun, cute, small because it's a genuinely short movie, as most animated movies are.
Yeah.
It's a really fun movie. That's a great starting point for animation directors.
Right. And in this, one of the more, I think, Phil Lord and Chris Miller don't get credit for being like some more influential directors working, because this movie really did influence kind of a different wave of animated film. Like I said, kind of re-up the Sony animations stuff, where then they did Smurfs after this and a bunch of other stuff. It kind of brought that that wacky kind of colorful kind of comedy kind of into the mainstream almost, and we saw other films like Rio kind of embrace that as well. A lot of other, like, outside of the Pixar or Disney realm had kind of embraced, hell, even somewhat with Disney, with Wreck-It Ralph, kind of takes a lot of the same kind of, like, the food, I mean, I guess food is just really the only connecting factor, but like how the kind of tone and the extreme like animation that they kind of go for here, and again, this is a movie that I think definitely addresses the societal norms and breaking out of it, as well as like how things that were from the past are no longer cool anymore, right? Like, we see like the Baby Brett character, who was like the baby in the original Sardines commercial. Now he's like this grown up like loser, and like he's still holding on to the past because he thinks that's like cool. But obviously people are over sardines in this town and stuff too. So.
Yeah, played by Andy Samberg.
Right, Andy Samberg. Yeah, the whole cast, the main
Bill
character is
Hader, right?
Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Anna Faris, Benjamin Bratt played Manny.
That's right.
Like I said, Mr. T. Dude, I'm telling you that he has so many funny lines in this movie. I can't remember, just the whole scene when he was like first being introduced. He was like dancing around, homie, man. There's just so many funny moments in this movie. So
yeah, and it's a great bit with his son too, that he's just wanting to help out his son. Because again, it goes back to the theme of father-son relationship. Because that's if you're going to focus on something, you want to make it something that everyone can understand. Mm-hmm. And when you hear them talk about the movie, they said that they chose that, and they wanted to make it a father-son relationship because it was simple and because everyone can understand that and everyone can come together on that idea. Right. Essentially is what it is.
Right.
So I think that's a great start for them, and it eventually jumped off their career to make animated movies. That's essentially what they were known for. So it's a great starting point. Also, shout out to Chris McKay, because Chris McKay was a head animation director on this, head of animation, and then, for this movie.
And then he ended up directing Lego Batman too,
correct.
Right? And then,
so that's you are capable as a filmmaker to jump off or even start off from animation and jump off to live action. It's
he was approached for the live action Nightwing too,
correct?
Right?
Yeah. That he's still attached to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't know about DC movies.
I mean, he tweeted about it like 3 days ago.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Still hope.
But apparently there was rumors of Zac Efron. So
what?
As Nightwing.
No way.
Everyone is like, I don't like fan casting. I hate it. Yeah. But a lot of people are fan casting. Damn it, I'm gonna forget his name. Dylan Campbell? Not Dylan Campbell.
Which one?
The kid from what's that? The kid from the freaking Maze Runner. What's his name?
Dylan
O'Brien.
Yeah.
Dylan O'Brien. People keep saying him, and every time I'm like, I hate fan casting, but I'm like, yo, that's kind of good. Dylan O'Brien would be kind of that's kind of dope. That's a dope
10
casting.
times better than Zac Efron.
Yeah, that's actually good at.
I would love to see Zac Efron as Captain or Shazam.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But he's too late because it's Zachary Levi.
They're already filming. Yeah. To me, it would have worked. He has that boyish charm. I think that would have. You need somebody tougher for Nightwing. I feel like.
Yeah.
I almost feel like if Dan Stevens wasn't doing Legion, like
Dan Stevens can do anything now.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens is one of the most versatile actors.
He's awesome. I love Dan Stevens.
Yeah.
And speaking of going to live action, they jumped into an R-rated comedy. So it is possible, guys, called 21 Jump Street.
Whoa.
And 21 Jump Street is an awesome freaking movie. Yeah. I love this movie. It stars Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. And this is what sparked Channing Tatum's career into comedy.
Yeah.
proving that he's actually a funny guy if you give him a good team around him, and if you give him an opportunity to be funny, he's actually a funny guy. And Jonah Hill was coming off the Superbad fame, which he was already known for.
Right.
But 21 Jump Street, you know what's funny, man? I did a movie fights like a super long time ago, and I argued about 21 Jump Street for one, like I forget what specific question it was, but a lot of people, and I'm one of those people, and I know a lot of people are going to judge me, but I don't care. I didn't know this was based on a show or movie that Johnny Depp. I had no freaking clue. I had no idea when I saw this in theaters, and when Johnny Depp came out, and I saw it with like a bunch of young people too. I think it was like opening night. When Johnny Depp came out, everyone's like, "Oh, cool, it's Johnny Depp." No one caught he was from the previous show. No one caught it.
Yeah.
No one freaking caught it. Like, I didn't catch it. A lot of people around me didn't catch it. And everyone was talking about afterwards. They were like, "Yo, that was funny when Johnny Depp came out," but no one like. I was like, he came out because he was in the original show. I didn't even know this was based on an original show. Sorry, guys. I didn't know that beforehand. Afterwards, obviously, I did know that. But making a reboot of a pretty semi-popular show is an interesting thing to jump off of. Yeah. But I think they nailed it, like, over and over. I think they just nailed it. Well, like, straight up, just like when Jonah Hill is, like, shooting freaking guns in the I think that's how good they nailed it.
Yeah. Well, dude, I think they really they perfectly landed on like the sweet spot of like understanding that nobody watches this show, but like still kind of having some respect for it. I think the whole and again, I think this is another theme that connects from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs to the 21 and 22 Jump Street movies. It's like the whole idea of like something from the past being cool and then like in the present not being cool. And I feel like this is like a meta commentary on that, like where like when we see like Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum go back to high school and think they're reliving like their old lives of like what's traditionally cool and what's not cool anymore. It's kind of almost like a commentary on this movie, right? Like if you watch the original show, and by the way, one of my uncles like used to watch the show all the time, so like I knew it was a show before, but then like I remember like being a little kid and just watching it. They used to play on like Channel 13 or whatever, one of the like the Fox like offset networks or whatever, and like they used to show reruns. And it used to be the silliest, most over the top, like dramatic, like melodrama kids like or teenage stuff. Like, oh my God, can you believe? Not like that, but it's like we have a new case today. Somebody has AIDS. Whoa, it was like it was like literally like one of those like cheesy 80s like PSAs or whatever, like but a full TV show of it, bro. So I'm like doing it this way is making fun of that and still doing the over the top cheesiness of like the detective, like going in and out and like talking to people, but still making it funny and updating it for modern times. And I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller are just genius for like taking that approach. And again, one of the more influential directors. Without this, we wouldn't see like the onslaught of R-rated comedy reboots like Chips, of old TV shows like Chips, Baywatch. There's another one that came out recently too, right? That was like another TV reboot that they kind of made into a comedy.
I think so, but I forget.
Yeah. But again, that's just a pattern that just works and just makes sense. And you know, for a lot of other movies, it doesn't work, but because of the careful comedy hand of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, this movie comes out like excellent.
Yeah, and the cast is really great too. I mean, obviously you have Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, but you have Brie Larson.
Yeah,
like Brie Larson.
Early Brie Larson. Yeah,
this is early. This is pre-Oscar Brie Larson.
Yeah,
and you also have what's his name? Dave Franco's in this, and then freaking one of the best characters in the entire two movies is Ice Cube.
Ice Cube, yeah.
I love his entrance. He's like, I know what you guys are thinking. Black captain, stereotype. It's like, I don't give a shit. I work my ass off to be captain. And he's like, embrace your stereotype like this guy. He's a good-looking guy, but he's probably a dummy. Like, everything was just, like, spot on. Literally winking at the camera.
Yeah.
Telling you how they're subverting expectations.
Wasn't that funny? That's another, like, they do the stereotypes like, to the T, but then like subvert it to
that's exactly it. Where he's like a dummy, but then he goes back to high school and he's hanging out with the nerds, and he realizes like the nerds are actually cool and you can like learn from them, and science is great and he can enjoy that stuff.
And it's so funny too when you watch like Clyde for Chance of Meatballs, and then the 21 Jump, where they both have the black cop that's like overly energetic and yelling and stuff.
That's so true.
And they both have children's storylines, weirdly enough too. We're gonna get to 22 Jump Street as well.
Yeah.
But like this one, for this movie, I thought it was so funny that like you said, like the role reversal happens, like Eminem, like, or not Eminem, but like Jonah Hill's wearing like the Eminem haircut in the beginning, the chain,
not so Slim Shady.
Yeah, not so.
Not so Slim Shady. That's a great nickname.
Yeah. and again, that's like the early 2000s, like what it was to be cool. But then like now that he when he goes back to school and he's being himself, he realized like being a nerdy, geeky kind of person is more popular now than like it probably ever has been before.
That's like, I love how they make a comment that, like, this is my era, because I'm in that little, like, I think they were in high school in 2005. Like, I was in high school in 2005. Mm-hmm. So that era is like my era kind of thing. So when he was talking about like, I'm in the opening era.
Oh, okay.
With like the old
right,
school
right.
So I'm in like, I was a nerd, and I was like liking nerdy stuff was dumb and this was stupid. Right. And then I love how they come back and they're like, yo, like liking comic books is cool. Like, yeah, it is cool. Like, everyone loves it now. Back when I was in high school, it wasn't cool, man. But I love how he's like, yo, if someone steps on you, just punch him in the face. And then the black guy comes up and he's like, what? Hey man, why'd you call me a nerd? And he punches him. And then it cuts to him in the principal's office, and it's like, you punched a little black gay kid in the face? And he's like, nah man, I just punched him and he happened to be gay. It's so funny, man. So good.
Yeah, I just love that they, and then who plays like the original, was it Nick Offerman?
Yeah.
Little part that he has in that movie, man, hilarious.
Yeah, because he's the one who does the references.
Right.
He's like, man, these guys are just redoing the same thing again. They're just rebooting this old program.
Right.
It's called 21 Jump Street. I don't know, and they're like, he's talking about it while winking at the camera.
Right.
That they're literally rebooting it, and it's such a stupid thing that they're doing. Obviously, that he does that again in 22 Jump Street with like probably the best. Talking at the audience, and Phil Lord and Chris Miller actually talked about it in their master class. Really? They talked about how every time they have fourth wall moments, they don't want to necessarily break it, but they always want to be like almost not touching it. And they were like making a joke about it. They were like, we're not touching you to the fourth wall. As far as like make it kind of make sense in the storyline, like always make it sort of make sense in a conversation and in dialogue, but never fully break it and like have someone like wink at the camera or something like that.
Right.
But they always love doing that stuff, and that's kind of what they're known for now. After doing 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, even the Lego Movie, they have a lot of like little fourth wall breaks as well. But I love this movie, and I'm gonna give you a shot, and I'm gonna probably go back to it for every movie from now on that we talk about. Lord and Miller, favorite moment of 21 Jump Street, or favorite joke, or favorite. There's so many fun, so like when they're on drugs and when they try the drugs, it's funny. For me, I love when they're like, they do the stupidest.
It's
like, so I'm gonna beat your dick off. Did you say you're gonna beat my dick off? I'll beat your dick off with both hands, bro. And he's like, yo, that's weird, man. And Jonah Hill's like, I think he means like he's gonna punch you in the dick and it's gonna hurt so hard that it's gonna fall off. That's funny. The freaking when they're that's the best one, when they're doing the car chase scene. And they keep throwing like every like the scene with like the gas, they hit a gas tank car, and it has like the shots like dun 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 dun, like it's about to explode, and it's like dun, and then it cuts to them. Oh man, I thought that would explode.
Then when it finally does, like the fucking chicken,
it's the chicken. It's just like, that's what explodes. Come on, man. Like, that was funny. That is funny because it's a shout out to action movies, and how action movies have tropes. And how they're subverting those tropes.
And spoofing like the bad boy, like the
bad boy, thing, dude. That freaking Bad Boys 2, that freaking highway scene, is insane.
Still one of the best. Like,
it's still one of the craziest action scenes I've ever seen.
Of all
legit.
Time.
But that's funny to me. There's so many funny moments for me, but that's probably my favorite. Is the scene where they're doing that?
Yeah. To me, it's also the drug trip scene when they first have it when they're talking to the coach.
And I love how they have like part 2, confidence, part 3, sleepiness, part 4. And it's like They have. I love when he's on the track. It's like, go Schmidt, go. Come on, Doug. What are you doing, Doug? No, don't. The baton's not your dick, bro. And he's just like commenting everything.
Right.
That's super funny to me. This movie's amazing. I love it.
This is probably one of the top 5, I say, comedies of like the 2000s eras. Like,
and it's funny when I told you this because jumping after this, we're jumping into 22 Jump Street now, and I gotta tell you, man, jumping from 21 to 22, you have the expectations of doing a comedy sequel, which guess what, guys? Comedy sequels are hard to do.
They never work out.
They hardly ever do. You can literally count them on your fingers how many are good or better than the original or great. Yeah. And yet 22 Jump Street does that, man.
Yeah.
That's why I told you when we were talking about The Dark Knight and you were talking about Godfather Part 1 and 2. Yeah. I was like, the best duel movies, Godfather Part 1 and 2, 21 and 22 Jump Street. Remember I said that?
Yeah.
That's how it goes for best Part 1 and Part 2. It goes Godfather 1 and 2, and then 21 and 22 Jump Street.
Yeah.
As far as best Part 1 and best Part 2.
What do you think is better, 21 or 22?
It's actually very hard, but I think overall it's fair to say that I think 22 is slightly better. Okay. I think 22 is slightly. Do you think 21 is better?
I'm on the other end.
21?
It's like 51-49.
Really, for me, it is 51-49 too. Don't get me wrong, but literally by a hair, by like 5 minutes of screen time, it slightly goes to 22 Jump Street. 22, man, I love this freaking movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie. And what's funny is my brother loves this movie too. And my brother is like, him and I don't usually have the same movie taste. Mm-hmm. But when him and I were talking about 21 and 22 Jump Street, him and I were like quoting lines and stuff because we both adore this movie. And this movie's great because it lets the audience know, if you're smart enough to capture it, especially with the Nick Offerman character, that yes, they're doing a sequel. Yes, it's hard to do. And
they're doing the same thing over again.
Doing the same thing over again, and we're going to try to make it better, and we're just repeating the same shit and expecting, something different. And it's like, we'll see how it goes, man. And it's literally like in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Mm-hmm, so it's great because you're literally telling the audience, we'll see how it goes.
Right.
But now they're in college, and they found out what's different about college as well. Mm-hmm. And I love the roommates they meet, the people they meet,
right?
The twins,
the Lucas brothers,
the Lucas brothers. Is that what they're called?
The real guys.
The twins is so freaking funny, dude. That scene is like 2 minutes, but it's hysterical. Mm-hmm. It's super funny, and it has
when they're like matching this, or when they're saying the sentences, it's like Jinx.
Tight.
Oh man, see, those guys are funny. They're actually like real stand-up comedians that do their sets together and have this little animated show called Lucas Brothers Moving Company. You gotta check out that. It's like, it only had like a few episodes, I think. Hilarious show though. Hilarious. Yeah. But those guys are great. And you're right though. It's the same thing. It's literally plot point by plot point the same exact movie as before. And just flip it up a little bit.
And yet it's hysterical. And yet they really do make it funny and make it interesting. I don't know. What are your general thoughts on this?
Normally, I really hate movies that are like, oh, we're shitty, but at least we're trying or something. Like, I really normally hate movies that do that,
or like we're repeating stuff.
Or we're generic. Like, I hate when movies like literally come out and say we're generic or we suck. Like, pretty much, And this movie did that, but to me, it was like they actually delivered on like the funny parts of it. To me, the two movies that like actually work with that approach are this movie and Deadpool, that have like the self-referential, like, oh, we're just doing the same thing like as usual, but then again,
Deadpool 2, we'll see.
Deadpool 2, yeah, we're also gonna do a spoiler review for that next week,
and I'm curious how that's gonna work out. If it works out, if it doesn't,
I hope. They hopefully. I mean, I love Josh Brolin playing Cable. It's like perfect casting.
Yeah.
But then but back to this movie though, I again that whole like self-referential, like they did that even in Neighbors 2, and like I really didn't like Neighbors 2, but I love how they implemented it in this one because it added like a new level of freshness by like switching the parts of the characters. Like now you finally like how one finally gets cool in high school and one isn't cool anymore. You see that flipped around, like in college. And I think it's almost like a meta commentary on like college to a certain extent. It's like, yeah, college is still like held back traditional standards of what's cool and what's not cool. The football players versus, the art geeks or whatever. So,
yeah. I think going back to more about the filmmaking for Phil Lord and Chris Miller, what makes them great is that they're not afraid to take risks, and they talk about it a lot in the discussion they had. But they say that the most important thing they have is open ideas, and open ideas basically means everything and anything goes. Just shout out something that you think is funny, and let's see if it sticks. And then you go down from there, and then you edit until you find out what's good and what doesn't work. But their ability and their fearlessness to do things that seem a little far-fetched and make it work. For example, what's funny to me, and this is the freaking the trip scene that they have when freaking Channing Tatum is in the freaking happy place. They're like, this place is awesome, man. Right. It's like, I got my Lambo, and he's like, man, my site sucks, man. And it's like Nickelback playing on the background. And then it cuts back to like Channing Tatum's place, and then the song like ass and titties, ass and titties. Yeah. And he's like dancing around. Yeah. And then freaking Vietnamese Jesus is dancing with him too. Yeah. And he's like, my place is awesome, man. He's like, man, my place sucks. And it starts raining on him. Right. And then Nickelback gets louder. Yeah. And he's like, I'm a fly away, man. I'm a fly. And he keeps flying like that, like on script. If I were a studio, like a 65-year-old studio executive, I'd be like, nah, bro. Nah. But seeing it on screen, it's hysterical. Yeah. Like that to me is an example of something that, whether it was their idea or not, is something that they've embraced and made it funny. Right. Do it different, because we literally have that scene in the first one. Now let's take it and make it funnier or make it different.
Well, and again, I think this one kind of highlights and draws out, I think the first drug trip scene in the first one is more of just like a fun comedy moment. Sure. I think this one, it kind of really does draw out like the inner psyches of the characters, like in that moment too, right? Like Jonah Hill's, what's his character's name in these movies? It's not Schmidt. Schmidt is
Schmidt and
Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're undercover names.
Their undercover names are Doug and Brad.
Doug and Brad. Okay.
Yeah, Brad is it, but I know Brad Schmidt isn't Schmidt Jonah Hill? I'm gonna find this guy.
Okay, we're gonna figure this out. Yeah,
because this is messed up.
Yeah, we fucked up. But pretty sure he's Doug though. Is he Doug?
Schmidt and Jenko.
Okay. So
Doug is Doug and Brad are their cover
first
names.
So. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Cover names.
Okay. There we go. Schmidt is Jonah Hill. All right. There we go. Okay. So you're right.
What our iTunes listeners are like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Putting their headphones.
They've been checked out. Yeah, sorry, y'all. Hey, at least we already got to download them. All right. No. Okay. So let me. What were we talking about?
You're talking about the inner psyche.
Oh, right. The inner psyche of the characters. I think that really highlights like where they are in that point in the movie, sure. Right? Like. And I think that's almost, kind of, what this is the meaning of, for a lot of like drug trip, for a lot of like real life drug trips, that really is like the psychological effect of like a lot of drugs, right?
That's a good
kind
point.
Of put you into the internal psyche of like
if the subconscious.
If you're super depressed, you're gonna
get
worse. And if you're super happy, you're only gonna feel worse. And a lot of times, they use drugs as like therapy to like kind of, or a lot of old medicine was like using drugs where therapists could kind of explore what, in the psyche. And, a lot of people say like taking like mushrooms or whatever is like a therapeutic experience, because it is kind of like those moments too where you do discover what's going on inside of you. So I don't know, just pulling that off.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I feel like this movie has so many moments that really deliver on making it's what I admire the most is knowing that your audience is smart enough to capture certain things. Right. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because I'm not the biggest comedy fan, because I feel like comedies nowadays and comedies for a long time, and I'm obviously generalizing it, but I'm saying like sometimes they play up the dumbness of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with being dumb, but I feel like knowing what your audience is expecting and subverting that expectation is much funnier if you know how to do it and if you make it in a funny, comedic way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they're so good at doing. In their discussion as well, Lord and Miller talked about how they're not afraid to hear other people's opinions on what they think is funny. And they're not necessarily, they said that the best advice they can give is don't be so attached to a joke, because as much as you feel like it's funny, that you can continue to make something funnier. Or if you have someone edit something else or give you an opinion on it, don't be so defensive about it, because that's coming from a place of an audience member, and you want to know what the audience thinks of. So they have a mentality of doing stuff that they feel is funny and hearing different people's opinions on going off script, which
it's hard for a lot of filmmakers.
It's hard for a lot of filmmakers, and then which goes back to my, first comment about the Lucasfilm stuff, but it's improvising. It's literally what it is. It's having the ability to read a script and on the day of the set be like, why don't you try this? Why don't you do that? Or what would you say in this moment? Or what, like, that's improv. That's improv comedy, right? And it's having the, confidence in yourself to go off script, and having a screenwriter that won't take that personally, which didn't work out for Han Solo. But I think improv comedy and stuff that's improvised and stuff that's funny and stuff that's spur of the moment, again, I mentioned Thor Ragnarok, works. It works. It has the ability to do something different. And that's even like Lego Movie or Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They improv a lot in animation. A lot of people don't know that, but a lot of that is improv.
And they animate
and they animate over it.
By the way, speaking of improv, I don't mean to cut you off. Are you done now?
No, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I've recently had some experience working in on an improv.
Are you doing improv classes, Ep.33?
Oh no, not doing it for acting. I actually just shot it. I've been shot it. I shot and directed this short film that was completely improv. It's called Please Press 5. Takes place on an elevator. In fact, I'm putting it on my YouTube channel this Friday. So, by the way, shameless plug, y'all. Check out my YouTube channel. I don't know if you care about.
No, man, it's not shameless at all, man.
Check out my YouTube channel, people. Every Friday I've been dropping.
Show. Shameless is a great show.
Shameless is a great show. Unfortunately, Shameless is not my YouTube channel, but every Friday I've been putting out short films. Every Friday. So this Friday is gonna be this thing I'm talking about here. It's all improv. We just went to an elevator for 2 hours and just shot it, and it's really funny. So check that out on my YouTube channel, Robert Butler III on YouTube.
There you go.
Yeah.
Back to 22 Jump Street.
Back to 22 Jump Street. Sorry, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, if you're hearing this.
Well, the reason why I bring that up too is because I feel like this is what sets them apart. I feel like a lot of comedy nowadays is set on what they want as far as a joke, and a lot of it is pride.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that happens, but we assume as fans of movies and we assume as fans of filmmakers that dramas and story beats and moments and touching intellectual moments in film and Oscar-winning films are what people gravitate towards and have very significant pride in as a screenwriter, when in reality comedic directors and comedic writers are very precious about their jokes, to the point where you're not cutting that out, you're not doing this, or you're not going to go away from this that I wrote or that I said or the idea that I came up with. It's one of the most ego-driven types and genres of movies. And the fact that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are able to kind of twist that and they literally say this, that they're the thing that sets them apart, the thing that they recommend the most as a screenwriter, is to have the ability to adapt on set, in post, on the day, or even in edit, to take other people's opinions and to make something better, make it funnier. How do we make this funnier is the thing that we're saying.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's again, you see it through the way some of it's edited, through the animation of some of it. Again, going back to the drop trick scene, that's definitely, you could tell a lot of that might have been added in post or whatever. And I just love the spice that they add to the scenes with the timing too. And I think the editing kind of almost improv editing in a way too, right? Of how each beat kind of hits a specific kind of tick, kind of for me the funniest scene. One of the funnier scenes.
I was just about to ask you, what's your favorite funny scene?
I have one scene in particular that's by far the best. But then kind of a scene leading up to that is when Janko is talking to Ice Cube, or I guess the scene after is like Jenko talking to the Ice Cube character about Jonah Hill, and then like the little timer.
Oh my god!
Little timer sound effect. Yeah, yeah.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Like as soon as he starts doing the oh shits and he starts banging the table, I lost it, dude. I lost it. I was laughing so hard.
It's so good. And again, that's the like that. If that scene was like too long or too short, it wouldn't have like worked. It wouldn't have been as funny. But like
the scene with Ice Cube at the buffet. Too.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite scene. Yeah, of the entire. That to me is probably the hardest I've ever laughed in the theater, like ever. Like when that reveal starts happening, all the way.
He grabs the leg of the turkey. He starts slamming the turkey.
Give me that motherfucking leg. I'm breaking. I just love Jonah Hill's like, or he's like, can a black man get some water? It's like Jonah Hill's like, give him some water. He's a black man. He's had a hard time.
I remember that. That's great, dude. Come on, man. He's black. Come on, help him out. Come on, he's had a hard life, man.
Queen Latifah did the little Straight Outta Compton joke in there too.
Oh my god,
the whole thing was just too good.
My favorite moment, and the ones that always gets me, well, one of my favorite moments in this movie, because I would say the trip is probably my favorite. That's the funniest to me. I laugh every time. But one of my favorites, and one that I always like imitate, and I used to make my friends laugh by doing it, because I know this movie almost by heart, not quite by heart. But it's the scene where they're infiltrating the Mexican drug lords. And yo, they told me that Hefe looked like a Mexican Wolverine, man. And he's like doing that whole thing. He's like, what? Why don't you tell him, man? Why don't you tell him, Hefe? He's like, oh, okay. I mean, there's. My name is Jeff. He does say my name is Jeff. And then he's like, oh, why don't you go into He's like, there's Dora and there's Diego. And he's like, man, Dora and Diego are made up names, fool. Tell them the truth.
No, he was like, Boots. Yeah, he was like, well, who's the person who attacked you, Holmes? He's like, Boots. Boots is a made up name.
Why don't you go into incredibly descriptive detail about? He's like, bro, you're messing me up. But and it became a meme. The whole my name is Jeff, like that became a meme, and it's still like hysterical to me. Yeah. There's a back when Vine was funny and alive.
Back when Vine, I was gonna say it was alive.
Because Vine is dead. It was shot and killed. But anyways,
it's like the Childish Gambino.
But once it became a meme, there was like everyone like someone edited it together like everyone's moments in movies when you say what's your name, like James Bond, or what's your name, I'm Batman, or and they just put my name is Jeff every time. It's like, who are you? And then like Spider-Man turns around and he's like, my name is Jeff, and then he like flies off. Or then it's like when in Batman Begins, when the guy grabs he's like, who are you? And when he says I'm Batman, he goes, my name is Jeff, and then he flies off. So that became like a meme. Like it's so funny to me that it actually became a meme. So I think that's funny, and I even think the dumber jokes that they say in the movie that like they say some like. When he's like, dude, when you throw the grenade at the end of the movie, he's like, say something cool. And he's like, something cool. And he throws it. Like, I still laugh. That's so silly, but it's really funny.
I also love the sound poetry scene.
As someone who's done as someone who's done poetry and has done slam poetry. Because I've told you that, right? Yeah. I actually competed and stuff with that stuff. And I did all right. But that killed me too. As someone who, they're like, oh, yeah. And they're like feeling it and stuff.
Real deep, yeah. Dude, and you know it kills me too, because this rewatching it now. What happened was I watched this movie. This came out like my junior year of high school. And I watched this movie so much, or my junior to senior year. It was actually my senior year of high school. I watched the movie so much back then, like I kind of like had to take a break and like not watch for a while. So like rewatching it now and like actually like pledging for fraternity and seeing how like the whole fraternity experience, through like the hazing and all that stuff, it just like brought back like the reminiscence, like, hey, I'm going through all that stuff too. So I don't know, it was just hilarious.
I love the blonde guy that he meets, that he becomes his best friend.
Oh yeah,
and they have like they relate on everything. They're like, bro. Yeah. They keep pointing at things, and they become
like the Lucas brothers, or I guess in the movie they're the Keefe brothers or whatever.
Yeah.
They become that to almost to an extent. It was just, I don't know, man. This movie's almost probably one of the best like college movies too, because you won't get a lot of those.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Or when you get them, they're always like kind of too much, in my opinion.
Kind of cringy. Yeah. I like and I love this, and then Accepted, and then of course like the original, like I guess kind of comedy, the college comedy. I can't remember the name of it. Whatever, you know what
Animal
I'm talking
House?
about. Animal House, yeah.
Okay.
But those and Accepted. I don't know if you've seen Accepted, but like
No,
that's one.
so.
It's like
Who
this
stars in
real
that?
low key one. It's Jay Baruchel. It came out in 2006. Like
okay.
nobody has seen it, but like I remember watching that distinctly as a kid, like laughing my ass off. So this and like those three movies are probably the three best college comedies I think.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Yeah, dude, I can't stop talking about how much I love this movie. It's awesome, and it's really one of the best like part 1 and part 2s of almost any movie. I love it.
And they really shot
enjoy
themselves
it.
in the foot by like the whole end credit thing.
That end credits is hysterical.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, dude.
Yeah, it's fire. But then like at the same time, they're not really gonna be able to make a 23 Jump Street now, right? Like,
They do like Jump Street in Space. They do like a bunch of like crazy ones.
They had like over 40 ones. We could also I guess talk about how they were gonna spin this off into the Men in Black franchise during that one weird
yeah. Are they still doing that?
I don't think so. I think that's dead, bro. I think
because aren't they doing they're doing Men in Black with Chris Hemsworth and
Tessa
Thompson.
Yeah, which I think is way better. If you would have asked me, bro, and again, I know they were spoofing Bad Boys, but it would have made way more sense if instead of it being a Men in Black and Jump Street, it should have been a Bad Boys and Jump Street crossover. You know, like
that's a good.
That would have been 10 times better, and they're both Sony, so I don't know why that didn't like happen. But to me, that would have been 100 times better because you would have got like the serious, you know, people playing against like the parody, the spoof versions of them. But that I don't know why they never. They can't even get a Bad Boys 3 movie made. So I was
gonna say, are they even doing that still?
Yeah, Bad Boys for life.
They have a date, but they still. I don't even think they're shooting
it.
They
play in January in 2020, bro.
Oh my
January
god.
2020.
Where's he at? Martin Lawrence.
Where's Martin Lawrence, man? Damn. Will Smith.
We can do a Where's Waldo with Martin Lawrence, man.
Will Smith has been chilling on YouTube now, so.
Let's jump into our final movie that we're going to talk about, Lord and Miller, which I always say stuff like this, but it might be my favorite one. I love the Lego Movie. I adore this movie. I didn't see it in theaters when it came out because to me it sounded stupid and I didn't want to see it.
I think that's the theme in like all of Phil Lord and Chris Miller's like filmography.
That's
like,
a good point.
Cleo for Chance and Meatball.
I remember seeing 21 and 22 in theaters though. I think I saw that.
Well, no, I mean, but like when they announced it, it's like what the fuck?
Oh yeah,
like Claudia for Chance.
That was Han Solo.
That's Han Solo too. Yeah,
I heard it and I was like, that's dumb. And they were like Lord and Miller, and I'm like, all right,
yeah,
I'll wait.
Yeah.
But the Lego Movie, I had no expectations, but then eventually I rented it and I watched it at home. I lost it, man. I like as a nerd, as a kid who used to collect Legos, as someone who loves like superheroes, as someone who loves these tropes that they bring up because they bring up so many tropes in it. Mm-hmm. I adore this movie. It might be like it's one of my favorite anime movies in the 2000s. Like straight up in the whole 2000s.
Over some Pixar stuff?
Over some Pixar stuff, wow, yeah. Okay. I personally, right? This is personal, right, man. Right. Don't take this shit personal, bro. Nah, you're gonna DC fan hate me, bro. You're gonna come at me and be like, "Yo, I'm gonna kill you, bro." You
don't like Pixar movies? How dare you?
But this movie is so funny to me. It's just so many different things and tropes that they do in this movie that is just hysterical. I adore this movie for so many levels. And again, they play with the stuff that we talked about with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yeah.
As far as how do you deal with simple concepts for children, but also funny, captivating for adults, but also not just concepts, but a message at the end of the movie. And I feel like they deliver on all those fronts perfectly. What are your thoughts on this movie?
I like this. Again, I actually didn't see this one in theaters either, weirdly enough. Although I do remember very distinctly, actually, one of my first memories of like getting to know you as a Schmoes No personality was hearing your podcast with JTE when you guys talked about this.
That's right. That's totally true. I think that's actually when I first saw it. I think it was first or second time. I forget. But you're right. I did talk about that on the JTE things.
I remember just being in high school and like listening. I was like, who's this new guy? And then like heard you on JTE.
And you're like, I hate this guy. This shit is whack. I'm going to turn this shit off.
Nah, man. You were one of the first guests on this podcast too, right? Or one of the...
First guest on
JT Movies.
Yeah, JT for JT Movies. Movie Ticks. I was one of his first guests, and we started JT Movie News, where we just talked about the news.
Yeah,
We did it for like a month or two.
Yeah.
And it was just us going back and forth on the news. Because JT and I, like, we're massive film fans, and we disagree on a lot of stuff. But then I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm super opinionated, as you can tell from listening to this podcast. So every time someone comes up something in the news, like, I'm always gonna have an opinion.
Right.
Like, there's people on Movie Talk and stuff who are like, oh, cool. And I'm like, I think that blah 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 blah, and I just go off. But yeah, man, JT, shout out to JT and R.I.P.
Yeah.
Movie News, JT Movie News.
Hey, but JT Movies Thinks is
still
on
going.
The channel.
Hey, it's still on the channel, man.
Yeah. Like every couple weeks, I think he posts every Friday at 10 a.m. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember you talking about that movie, and you and JT talking about it actually convinced me, like, go out and watch it. So,
no way! That's
yeah.
amazing, man. I did something.
Yeah, he did something.
Accomplished
and now
something.
we're here today.
And what'd you think?
I like this movie, man. I love this movie, actually. This is probably, you're right, it's one of the better animated films, and I think they really capture the spirit of, like, again, like the outsider trying to break the norm, be his own person, and how everybody's always like conforming to these standards of like living the certain type of way. And then the main character in this movie, played by Chris Pratt, is just a construction worker who's trying to break out of that mode, trying to build something himself. And I really admire that. Again, another message that kind of resonates, not only through the kids movies that Phil Lord and Chris Miller do, but I guess through their Jump Street movies as well as too. So again, this is like really spunky, it's really funny. I like that they incorporated the existing DC, or not just DC characters, but of course like Lego Batman, but all the other Lego characters, and make it like this whole world out of it, and kind of play into like the whole mystical like world building elements of it. Even with like Morgan Freeman playing God, you know. So all of it, like, or not God, but he plays like
a wise old wizard.
Yeah, wise old wizard. Yeah, but again, it's the same kind of, again, another stereotype that they like incorporate, but it's funny and they subvert it in like a weird kind of way. So I really, this is probably, and this came out with like 2014, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this literally came out the same month as 22 Jump Street.
Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
Yeah, the same year, same month, I think, almost.
I think it came out February, right?
Oh, did it?
Yeah, 7th of February.
Oh, February. Okay, and then I think the Jump Street came out in June or something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, though, great. Like, this is a great film, and of course, it got the acclaim like critically, but it didn't get like the awards recognition.
It was one of the most, like, you know, it was one of the biggest snubs we've had in a while, because critics enjoyed it, fans enjoyed it, it made money, and for some reason, here we go again with the Academy. The Academy, like, kind of, you know, raised their nose ups in the air for it. They were just like, this is far too silly for us Academy members.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's silly. I think they were just like, they were.
I think so.
I think it was more. Me personally, I think
corporate?
it was corporate. Yeah, I think it was more like, oh, we don't want to give a movie called The Lego Movie an animated feature, whatever, you know. So.
Could be both. I don't know. I feel like they probably didn't like the silliness either. I think it's great, and I think it's unfair to. Let's just say there's a lot of politics going on behind with animation studios too.
Oh yeah. Well, this was really one of the first major Warner Brother animated films to pop off since like Iron Giant they did a long time ago. But like this, and of course they stuck with like the home releases and the DC properties. But like this is one of their first major like big release films, and they put a lot more concentration on that ever since. So that's why we have Lego Batman movie, Lego Ninjago. So it kind of spun off this whole universe of films that we're still living with today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gave a lot of... what I love about this movie is that we have our official main character, Chris Pratt. He plays Emmett. But we have so many different rotating door characters who just come in and out for like a cameo, who come in and out for like a funny moment, for a funny scene. And it's great. Obviously, a recurring character in the movie who eventually got his own spin-off movie was Lego Batman.
Yeah. Who's
played by Will Arnett. And he's hysterical in the movie because he's just a stereotype of Batman.
You're right.
He's literally just playing up all his stereotypes about like how I have a dark childhood and I have some really deep thoughts, but I'm Batman, so I'm gonna do cool things. And he's like doing cool things, and he's like, I love when he throws a batarang. He's like throwing a million batarangs, and he's like, "First try, cause I'm Batman," and he just keeps saying that over.
First try, yeah.
First try. But they have him as a recurring character. They have like the female love interest play that character, but she's like a badass, kind of like she's like a hybrid of like Trinity. Her name is Lucy in the movie Wild Style.
Right.
But she's like a hybrid of like Trinity and like the stereotypical like, you know, female love interest who's like really cool and really badass, but has like a tragic backstory as well.
Right.
But they play up those tropes and those themes and those stuff that we always see in superhero movies and action movies.
It's the hero journey story. Like they play it beat by beat, like the whole like 12-part hero journeys thing that you see in like every movie, Star Wars, Matrix. All the way down to like the mystical wizard, like you said, the love interest, the woman as the temptress, all these different like beasts, like the crossing the threshold, like, you know, like leaving your post, never coming back. It's all literally the exact steps of like the hero journey story. They just put into this, but then make it like a more. And again, you like you said in the beginning, like they make it simple so it's easy to understand, but it's also very much making fun of it and making it so adults can understand like how fake and absurd it is. Yeah. And they you know, like you said, like they're touching the fourth wall and like not really touching it. In the same way of like having the Morgan Freeman wizard character always be floated down in like those little strings. Like, you know, it kind of removes like the realism from it. It makes you know that you're watching a bunch of toys being played with, and they play with that aesthetic really well, I think.
Yeah, I mean the animation, it has to go mentioned because this animation is incredible. It's obviously computer animated, but it's made to look like stop motion animation. They didn't officially go into stop motion. A lot of people wanted it to be stop motion, but for anyone who doesn't know, stop motion is incredibly difficult to do.
That would have been crazy to see for this movie.
Yeah, it's very hard to do.
I just watched Isle of Dogs today.
Go.
Yeah, and that's also a movie that was very meticulously like handled when it came to animation, stop motion animation.
Yeah. But this, I mean, obviously the like everything is made of like Lego bricks. So when someone gets shot, you get like they explode.
Right.
It's funny because you don't have to make it. You can make it violent, but you don't have to, you know, be afraid of like it's gonna be too violent. Like it's funny to do that. And then obviously fire. You see Lego fire, Lego water, Lego everything. So for me, that. It continues to play with the idea of like these are Legos and this is a Lego world that we're living in, which is great.
Right.
One of my favorite things in the movie is one of my favorite characters in the movie is Unikitty.
Yeah,
played by Alison Brie.
Yeah,
Unikitty is clutch, bro. Unikitty is that MVP though. I love Unikitty, man, because she plays the stereotype of like I'm the bubbly female character, and I'm here to like be the favorites for all the little girls. And she plays up that stereotype so much. And then she goes into what's her place? Crazy Cuckoo Land?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Where everything is wonderful and beautiful, and no one says anything bad, and it's just a cute, funny way to talk about how ridiculous the stereotypes of little girl toys and little girl stuff is.
Yeah, it's like the Hello Kitty.
And the Hello Kitty.
The
like,
My Little Pony stuff.
Like all this stuff is like so ridiculously like purple, pink, and beautiful. And it's just like so like you get it that they're like telling you like this is kind of silly that we're making little girls like this shit. But I love her character because she plays a big hand in the movie, and she eventually sees the destruction of Crazy Cuckoo Land, which is heartbreaking for her. But she has one of my favorite lines when they're like, distract the business meeting, but she's like, I don't know what to do. And then it cuts to her and she's like, business. And then it cuts to the board meeting and they're all like, yay. Like it doesn't matter what she said.
I love this movie, man.
And then obviously Superman is
Jonah Hill.
Channing Tatum plays Superman.
But then
Jonah Hill plays Green Lantern.
Okay.
And Green Lantern is always trying to kiss up to Superman. And Superman's like, y'all, chill, man. Chill. And he's like, yeah, Superman, I mean, I can still be your sidekick if you want. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm Superman. I'm Superman, bro.
Yeah.
And he's like doing that stuff. Wonder Woman comes out.
The Star Wars Billy D. Williams came out to play the Lando cameo.
That's right.
With Harrison Ford didn't replay Han Solo, but they had the whole Millennium Falcon there and stuff.
Yeah,
That was a nice scene.
I freaked out in that scene. I lost it. I was like, this is like literally my childhood, my style of comedy, like everything coming to life.
I would love to see them take this movie and then revoice it with Donald Glover as. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Special edition joke. Yeah. But no, that I love that they use like the other characters, and of course in Lego Batman they use like Voldemort and like a whole bunch of other characters as well. But this one, this one I thought was just nice that they touched on the fact that they could get away with like different licensing and like.
But what's funny too is that let's talk about kind of the ending of the movie and the twist in the movie, I guess you can say,
right.
Where we find out the whole Will Ferrell,
Will
Ferrell,
Ferrell and his son, or his son is playing with the toys.
What'd you think of that?
I love it. I think that's probably one of the catalysts to like wrap up the whole entire movie. It's about using creativity, about being imaginative, and about building and creating your own things. So I like the fact that it's this kid who is like literally locked in the closet, not in the closet, but like in his basement, like kind of hiding away his like creativity and worth, kind of vocalizing that through his toys, through his merchandise. And really it's a commentary on like how kids, even though as silly as it may seem to be attached to like Legos and toys, they really use that as an expressive manner to like express how they feel and do all that kind of stuff. So I love this. It's a tearjerker kind of ending. I think it really works. It's not animated, of course, it's live action, but like even it still feels like in pace and with tone of like what's happening inside of that world too. I guess Will Ferrell lends a little hand into that because like we see Will Ferrell pop on the screen, it's like, whoa, what? Like, that was a little trippy.
But he plays the villain too, right?
Yeah. But just
what's his name in the movie? He's like super businessman, Lord of Business.
Yeah.
And President Business.
Yeah, right. And then again, I think that's it's a bigger theme of like him playing both the father and the villain. Like like the kid feels like he's not getting his voice across, and I think that's a really important and like powerful message too. So I really dug how like that kind of subverted the twist of the ending and all that kind of stuff. So
and absolutely, it really is funny. And speaking of, I forgot to mention the song "Everything Is Awesome."
Right.
It actually got nominated for.
That's my favorite. That's
an Academy Award.
You're gonna ask about favorite moments. That's my favorite moment of the movie is the whole like "Everything Is Awesome" song. That to me just kills me. Like that's the perfect way to open the film too. Is like
it is.
It just shows you how like ridiculous like this whole film is like gonna be, but it's still like charming and sweet in and of itself. So yeah. That
song's hysterical, and it's I think it's Andy Samberg and is it?
The band or whatever. Or?
Yeah, it's Andy Samberg singing it, right?
Yeah.
Lonely Island.
Yeah, Lonely Island.
And I think Tegan and Sarah sing it too.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
But shout out to them for making an Oscar.
Yeah, Lonely Island's making a real like song for a movie that they're not in. That's crazy. I really want to see that Pop Star movie, man. I never saw it. I
never saw it either.
Yeah. I heard it was really good though.
Yeah, shout out to Andy Samberg because they worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which got canceled and renewed in like the span of 2 days.
Shout out to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, man.
Again, another Phil Lord and Chris Miller property.
Lord and Chris Miller property.
The pilot.
We got 2 Latinos in there.
Right.
So shout out to them. Very diverse
cast too.
Yeah.
Terry Crews and the other black guy. I can never remember his name, but he's great in that show. I'm not gonna lie. Only watched like the first 2 seasons of it, so I felt bad when they canceled it. Like, oh shit, I always meant to be like, oh, I'll go back and finish it one day, but I felt bad when they canceled it. I was like, oh fuck, I never went back.
More important, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming back, guys.
Whoa.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6.
Wow, who would have thought that? Oh, Last Man on Earth, they also directed.
That's
too,
right.
Yeah,
that's totally right.
I only watched the first 2 episodes of that. I'm not gonna lie. Not that I didn't like it.
But it got some acclaim though.
It did get acclaim, and a lot of critics.
It's written by Will Forte though, so shout out to Will Forte.
Created by Will Forte. He's starring in it. And Phil Lord and Chris Miller directed the pilot for that. It's still going on too, right? It's still on air.
No, it got canceled.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh shit! Last Man on Earth.
They canceled Last Man on Earth.
Just this most recent cancellation thing. Oh wow, really? Okay, wow.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to that show, man. Damn, I thought. Fuck, man. I'm sorry.
Everyone is maybe pilot seasons, man. I'm gonna be there. You're gonna see me on one of these shows, guys. I'm gonna be on network TV. Ace the comedian. Hey, because I'm a funny guy.
You gotta sell that show, Ace.
That's probably gonna wrap it up for me. I love the Lego Movie. I love all these movies. And again, I was talking to my friends about it, and the more and more, I mean, the reason we did this, guys, was because of the coming Han Solo movie. And the more I see these movies and the more I relive them and I hear the conversations that Lord and Miller have, the more I feel like we could have gotten something pretty interesting. Whether it would have like fit the Star Wars tone or whether it would have been faithful to the Han Solo mythology or not is kind of irrelevant if they would have made a funny, cool movie, in my opinion.
Yeah. And hey, man, salute to originality in these movies. I hope one day Lucasfilm will get it figured out. I think they need a little, I think every new franchise needs a little bit of time where they play it safe, play a little traditional. We like the Marvel movies, the beginning ones were a little safe, a little traditional, but then they started growing and gaining popularity and reliability, and then they started getting weird with them. And I like, not weird, but different, It started feeling like individual films, and I think that's what, maybe Star Wars just needs that right now. Maybe they do need to keep hiring the generic white dudes to fix their movies, and then maybe one day they'll bring in a little bit of diversity in there as well. So
yeah, spice things up a little bit.
Yeah.
With that being said, Ron Howard, we're coming for you.
Ron Howard, and then hey man, that's like 18 movies. Yeah. So we kept this one pretty short. This one's only like an hour 20, something like that.
Yeah, but Ron Howard, we gonna try. Let's just say that, because let's just say we're gonna make the condensed version of Mr. Ron Howard. Because we're also going to talk about Deadpool, which is coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
So shout out to that, guys. Leave us your comment on your favorite moment in 21 or 22 Jump Street, favorite moment in Lego Movie. What's your favorite Chris Lord and Miller movie? We want to hear your voice in the comment section, guys, because that's a great way for you guys to connect with us. If you're an iTunes listener, shout out to you. We love you. We appreciate you. If you want to jump on YouTube and tell us how much you love us,
yes.
I'm not telling you to do it, but if you want to do it, you're allowed to.
Give us one view and one comment. That's
if you give us one view and one comment, we will give you a look through the camera. a special look, a very sexy look for Mr. RB3. I promise that.
Oh yeah.
With that being said, guys, I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out from the Ninjago podcast. Peace out.